What's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today I'm going to be going over my power rankings for the NBA in Week 2 as the second week of the NBA season just began. Usually people do their power rankings on Monday. Throughout the rest of the season, I do plan to do my power rankings on Mondays, but doing today's power rankings on Tuesday, so I'm going to include yesterday's games as of last week as well. Let's get into it. So, number 30, I have the Washington Wizards. I know the Wizards won a game this week, but their two losses were just terrible losses. They lost the Celtics by 19, but they were losing that game by way more. They were down by 31 going into the fourth quarter. I think at one point they were down like 34, 35, maybe 36 points in that game. Terrible performance against Boston tonight. And against the Pacers, they lost by 23 and gave up 143 points. Their only win is against the 0-4 Memphis Grizzlies, and that was their home opener. And the Grizzlies were, coming off a back-to-back. The Wizards are 1-2, last week being 1-2. Wins versus Memphis, losses versus Boston and Indiana. 29, I have the Portland Trailblazers. 1-3, last week they were 1-3 as well. Their only win is against Toronto Raptors, which was yesterday. Losses, Los Angeles Clippers, Orlando Magic, Philadelphia as well. I want to see more from them because they've lost to some good teams like the Clippers, the 76ers, and the Magic. But, the Clippers, the Magic, and the Sixers. So I want to see maybe how they play against some mediocre teams. Like they won against Toronto last night, and their first three losses have been against better teams. 28 of the Toronto Raptors, 1-3. Last week, 1-3. Their only win is against Minnesota, which was their first game, but they've lost their last three against Chicago, Portland, and Philadelphia. All right, 27 out of the Memphis Grizzlies, they're 0-4. Last week went 0-4. Their wins, none. Losses, Denver, New Orleans, Washington, Dallas. 26 out of the Houston Rockets are 0-3. Last week, 0-3. Wins, none. Losses, San Antonio, Orlando, and Golden State. The only reason I have the Rockets over some of these other teams is because the Rockets are playing solid basketball. They played a really good game against the Golden State Warriors. They competed with the Golden State Warriors. They were down 16 points and just completely were able to stop the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors in 6 or 6.5 minutes of basketball only scored 4 points. The Rockets took the lead. We're up by 2 points with 5 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. The Rockets played good basketball against the Warriors. Just the only reason why they lost the game is because Stephen Curry caught fire in the fourth quarter. And their other loss against the San Antonio Spurs, they lost in overtime. It was a close game, and the Rockets made their mistakes. They turned the ball over 18 times that game. Lost. They also missed 10 free throws, but the refs made some upsetting calls in that game as well. That if the calls would have been different, Rockets probably would have won the ball game. So right now the Rockets should probably be 1-2. Should have beat the Spurs, but they didn't. They're on 3. 25 of the Hornets, they're 1-2. Last week they went 1-2. Wins Atlanta, losses Detroit and Brooklyn. 24 of the Spurs, they're 1-2. Last week 1-2. Wins Houston, losses Dallas and the Clippers. 23 the Timberwolves are 1-2. Last week 1-2. Wins versus Miami, losses versus Atlanta and Toronto. 22 of the Pistons, they're 2-2. Last week 2-2. Their wins against Charlotte and the Bulls, and their losses against Oklahoma City and Miami. 21, I have the Bulls are 2-2. Last week 2-2. Wins Toronto and Indiana. Their losses are against OKC and Detroit. So 20 of the Magic, they're 2-1. Last week 2-1. Wins Houston and Toronto. Losses. Their only loss came tonight against the Lakers. 19 out of the Utah Jazz are 1-3. The reason I have the Jazz still, in the top 20 and they're 1-3 is because the teams they've lost to. The team they've beat. They're 1-3. Last week they were 1-3. Their win is against the Clippers, and their losses: Kings, Suns, Nuggets. 18, Nets. They're 1-2. Last week went 1-2. Wins against the Hornets, losses against the Mavericks and the Cavs. I mean, yeah, their only losses have been to two really good teams, and they were competing in those close games. 16 out of the Miami Heat. 17 out of the Atlanta Hawks. They're 2-2. Last week went 2-2. Wins against Milwaukee and Minnesota. A great comeback against the Timberwolves, down 21. Losses against the Hornets and the Knicks. 16 out of the Heat. They're 1-3. Last week 1-3. Wins against their only win is against Detroit. Losses to Boston, Minnesota without Jimmy Butler, and Milwaukee. 15 Pacers are 2-1. Last week 2-1. Wins Washington and Cleveland. Loss Chicago. 14 Cavs 1-2. Last week 1-2. Win. Their only win is against Brooklyn. Losses Oklahoma City and Indiana. Although they've been without Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Jared Allen. 13 the Knicks. They're 1-2. Last week 1-2. Wins Atlanta. Losses Boston and New Orleans. 12 Pelicans 2-1. Last week 1-2. Last week 2-1. Wins New York and Memphis. Loss is to the Warriors, which was today. 11 76ers just made a trade 2-1. Last week 2-1. Losses against their only losses against Milwaukee. Their wins are against Toronto and Portland. 10 entering the top 10. The Lakers 2-2. Last week 2-2. Their wins are against the Phoenix Suns and the Orlando Magic. Their losses against the Denver Nuggets. 9 Oklahoma City Thunder. They're 3-1. Last week 3-1. Their wins are against the Bulls, the Cavs, the Pistons. Their losses against the Nuggets. 8 the Kings 2-1. Last week 2-1. Their wins the Jazz and the Lakers. Their loss the Golden State Warriors. The 7 the Mavericks. At 7 out of the Mavericks are 3-0. Last week 3-0. Their wins are against the Nets, the Spurs, and the Grizzlies, and they're undefeated. So they do not have any losses. And at 6 out of the Clippers, just traded for James Harden. They're 2-1. They last week 2-1. Wins against San Antonio and Portland. Losses against the Jazz. 5 the Phoenix Suns. They without Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. I want to see those three guys to play before I put them any higher. But last week 2-1. Jazz and Golden State Warriors were their wins, and their loss is the Lakers. At 4 the Milwaukee Bucks. Dame and Giannis have been okay in their first 3 games. 2-1. Last week 2-1. Wins against the Heat and the 76ers. Loss against the Hawks. At 3 of the Warriors, they've looked pretty good to start off the season. They're 3-1. Last week 3-1. Wins against Sacramento, Houston, and New Orleans. Although New Orleans was without Brandon Ingram tonight, and their losses are 0. Celtics are 3-0 as well. Last week 3-0. Wins are against New York, Miami, and Washington. And the Nuggets, the only team that has 4 wins in the NBA so far this season. Last week 4-0. Wins Los Angeles, Memphis, OKC, and the Jazz. So that's it for my power rankings week 2 in the NBA. That's the video. If you guys enjoyed, let me know your thoughts, and peace out.